You're on the Bible Forum. I want to talk to you about children. When children will rule. This comes from a report from an organization called TomorrowsWorld.org. Dr. Robert Shaw, a medical doctor, an experienced child and family psychiatrist, has published an analysis of a growing plague of defiant, joyless, and selfish children. He writes, quote, "Our culture may well be breeding a generation of unattached, predatory children because busy parents focus on their own concerns, rarely placing limits on their children or permitting them to experience frustration, and thereby overlooking their children's moral and spiritual development." Dr. Shaw asserts something terrible is happening to our children. We've lost touch with what they need from us to grow and to thrive. We have created enormous numbers of children who are disaffected, alienated, amoral, emotionally stunted, and even violent. He says children need love, they need stability, they need structure, they need supervision, correction, and they need clear instruction as to what is right and wrong. They need to have these things modeled within the family and supported by social institutions. And yet these important factors are disappearing in our secular, self-absorbed, divorce-ridden societies. Who's doing this? He says it's you. Absentee parents are doing this. Not merely those who are not around enough, but even those who are very much there, but refuse to interact with their children in the way they need, in healthy ways, constructive ways. He says these children are being injured in their emotional development by being allowed to behave in totally inappropriate ways. And parents are finding it very easy to blame the media. These children are exposed to all of this media. The media is doing this. But this doctor and anybody with a logical brain in their head would turn around and ask the question, who's giving them the access to this media? How do they have all this access? Dr. Shaw writes on the jacket of his book, quote, "While the media is far from innocent, the bulk of the blame lies with faddish, both neglectful and overindulgent child-rearing practices that experts have promoted for the past 30 years. These children are not an aberration. They are the natural result of the way we've been raising them. They have been developmentally crippled by the child-rearing practices that have spread like a virus from home to home throughout this country. In simple terms, he says, we have been misled. We have been misinformed about how to rear children. And we are now reaping the terrible and inevitable consequences." Now I want you to understand, my audience, every parent raised before 1960 knew all of this. The 60s radicals, they're called, deliberately rejected history in favor of their more enlightened understanding and ability. An understanding and ability no doubt enhanced by marijuana and by television. A situation exacerbated by technology and the more modern ideas of subsequent generations. In the words of this expert, we are rearing a generation of damaged children. Children damaged by political correct ideas that dismiss the vital role of daily mothering. Mothering that promotes attachment, affection, security. Mothering that shapes the brains of infants. Their development has been damaged by busy lives that rob us of real family time, and by the absence of fathers as solid examples in the home. Placating children, rewarding a lack of real accomplishment, destroys character and discourages initiative, Dr. Shaw says. Trying to negotiate with defiant children simply undermines respect for authority. Dr. Shaw? Yep. Ecclesiastes, Bible, Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 11. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. That's divine wisdom. We have rejected that. We knew that in the 1950s, 40s, 30s. We knew that in every generation until 1960s. What changed? Dr. Shaw warns that the children rearing attitudes and practices followed by many parents today, quote, constitute a prescription for disaster. Long ago, God said, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Children need to be taught the laws of God. Deuteronomy 4, Deuteronomy 6. The laws of God. Given supervision on how to exercise those. Given correction when they fail. Encouragement when they get it right. Proverbs 13:24, God warns, he who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. These and other simple but fundamental principles were handed down to us by our forebears over thousands of years, but suddenly began to be ridiculed and rejected by modern child-rearing experts who were spouting total nonsense and reaping in our society tragic results. But all of this could have been helped, avoided, if we had just listened to the prophets of old. Isaiah warns us in chapter 3, verse 11, woe unto the wicked. Woe is a very serious negative word. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with them, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors. Women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths. The Lord standeth up to plead, and standeth to judge the people. The prophet saw what was going on. Children had risen up to be the oppressed. They were running the family. And the men were allowing the women to rule over them. They were just passing all this off and saying, well, we're all equal, I guess. And it caused terrible chaos in the culture. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 16 and 17. The leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows, for every one is an hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. God's hand stretched out to a rebellious people who are destroying their own children. Hosea chapter 8 verse 7, for they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. It hath no stalk. The bud shall yield no meal. If so be it yield, the strangers shall swallow it up. Hosea 4:1, hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. Why? Because there is no truth, no absolute truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of God, I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. That could be written about the United States of America. The joyless, vulgar, defiant, predatory, pleasure-seeking, out-of-control children who recognize no higher authority than their own desires and opinions are the products of our misguided age. We are at least 3 or 4 generations removed from anything remotely connected to a biblical society. And the Bible predicted that this would occur in the last days. Those days just before the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. 2 Timothy chapter 3. We need to wake up because these prophecies are coming alive today. Paul wrote this, know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. Why? For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, can't control themselves, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. They are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That describes our culture today. Not the 80-year-olds, but the 30-year-olds. Did God know what was going to be happening? Did he warn us about it? Did we care? We didn't think it mattered. And that was the point. We as a culture have forgotten how to raise children. And now the children are telling us what to do. They're holding office, public office, all across the land in the highest parts of the country. And we watch them acting like teenagers who don't seem to have the sense to get in out of the rain. And we don't understand that. We think, well, they're smart. They got education. Maybe it's us. Maybe we don't understand something. No. No. They have no respect for authority. They have no respect for God. God warned us. How are you raising your kids?